Good morning. I think, give me just a second. I got to make sure I let some people in. Whoa, this is so bizarre. There's only one person on Zoom. Whoa! This is crazy. This is the biggest group of people I've been with in 2 years. Hey, Daniel. Good to see you guys. Okay. Any questions while we wait for people to log in? It's your time. Sorry, my mouth was full when I came in. I didn't get breakfast. So, no questions, comments? Good to see everybody. Okay, if you're on Zoom, there are now a few more people. Can you hear me on Zoom? Rayo, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Before we get started, I want to talk about a meeting that I had last week with my leadership. It's about the class. So we made a decision, a final decision about in class, online, both. Remember that conversation? So what do you think? Where are we now? What do you guys think we agreed to? Make sure we're on the same page. What are your expectations, Daniel? Say that again. Which was? To record this one and post it? It's kind of like that. I thought it was record one of them.
Correct.
Was it going to be this one? So maybe. I mean, that part I wasn't so clear about. We're recording this one. We're streaming live to Facebook and YouTube right now. But I also streamed live to Facebook and YouTube in the earlier class at 10 a.m. So we're doing both. I met with my leadership though, and we had a conversation, and we were in agreement that even if we had just one student who said, hey, I signed up for a face-to-face class and I expect to have a face-to-face class, even if 99 students said I would prefer that it's online, that one person is the only one that stands in the right. Because every one of you and every one of the folks who are not here signed up for a face-to-face class, and I signed up for a face-to-face class. So even though I tried to accommodate the 99, I was told very clearly by my leadership that I can't do that. But what I can do is take Daniel's suggestion, and this is what I'm going to do. So I made this announcement earlier to the earlier class. I'm going to make it to you just so we're all clear about this semester. This is a face-to-face class. I love it that you're here, and thank you for being here. If you can't be here or you're not here and you're watching this at 2 a.m. in the morning on Facebook or YouTube, that's fine too. I'm not going to take roll, but what I am going to do is what I do in an online course, which is keep you accountable through the assignments and the interaction that we have throughout the semester. I'll be able to do that even though, essentially we're a face-to-face class. So as long as you're cool with that, then I'm not going to take roll, and you can show up and you can not show up. If you don't show up, you are required to watch the recording. You're responsible rather for the content that happens during the class, even if you're not here. So no roll, you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get to be in class, and you get to have the benefit of having online, on-demand content. So this week we're going to talk about credit and debt, and I'm about to jump into that. What time is it? It is definitely time. I'm going to admit the final student into the classroom, and we're going to get started. So before I get started, are there any questions, especially those of you who are here in person? Any questions you have or anything I need to help clarify? Yes?
I'm sorry, I texted you, I think it was on Friday, if you could clarify the assignment for me. And I watched the video that you sent me, but I still wasn't clear on it. So what I did is that I used your portal for like future expenses and all
Yep.
that. And I used, I believe the name of it is every dollar for like my current expenses. I don't know if that's.
So every dollar, that's how you're going to track your expenses. So that's cool. And then you're going to use your financial planning portal to create like a budget for after you graduate, like a real life budget. I think that's great. I think that's great. And that's what we're going to talk about, how you're going to use that financial planning portal throughout the semester. We're going to talk about that every week. So it's great. You recognize that you have basically two different sets of financial data. One is you have to keep track of your spending for this semester. That's number one. So you're going to use a tool to do that. But then the other one is you're going to create a real life budget based on all of the expenses that a normal human being would have that you may not have right now. So that's what you're going to do in your financial planning portal. You're going to create a comprehensive financial plan using some data that may not be accurate for you right now, but it's going to be hopefully pretty accurate for you when you graduate based on some of the basic assumptions that you have and that you will have to research as well to figure out how much will that cost? How much income will I have and how many expenses will I have? And that's going to be your financial plan. And that's what we're going to use this semester to teach you how all of these pieces of a financial plan work together. Does that make sense? So, but you need a tracker to track your actual expenses because there are some things you're going to be doing right now in real life, and that's why you're going to do that. Great question. Does that answer your question? Good. Thanks. Are you the one that sent me the message and said, no, it wasn't you because it was a guy, and you're not a guy. I'm pretty sure it was a guy who said, I just wanted to reach out. I know who it was now. I just remembered. I'm not going to say the name, but just wanted to reach out. I'm confused about the assignment. That was the email. What would you do with that email? Thank you for sharing. If you don't ask me a question, you can expect I'm probably going to send you some rude little short response. It wasn't too rude, I hope. But anyway, that was a fun part of my week. Any other questions? No? Okay, let's get started. We're going to talk about credit and debt. Credit and debt, it's a big part of personal finance. I want to set the table by saying that what I'm going to teach you today, I'm going to teach you some ins and outs about credit reports, credit scores, the FICO system, but all of that whole system is, do you think it's designed for your benefit? Nah? No. I think you're right, but tell me why. What's your name? Artival?
You can call me Artie.
Okay, Artie. What do you think it's designed for? If this whole credit scoring system isn't designed for your benefit, whose benefit is it for?
The bank.
Yep. So you guys get that, right? It's like I have seen students for the 10 years I've been teaching this course be very focused on their credit score and that's good. I mean, it's good that you know what your score is, and I want you to know what makes your credit score, what data goes into it. So you're going to have all that information this week in your online course. You have a white paper for FICO. Has anybody seen that white paper yet? So you don't have to study it. Really, there is a quiz, and a lot of the quiz questions come from that white paper. So I would encourage you to know where it is, grab it, save it, review it, just have it ready. But it's a great resource if you want to understand how this whole system works. So we're going to talk about that today. The big distinction, though, for most people is when I say credit report, you hear credit score, right? Maybe that's not true for you, but in the past, I'm saying credit report and you're thinking credit score, and they're two different things. So the data might be the same. The data that creates your credit score comes from the same databases that create your credit report, but they're two different things. And it's important, especially this week, especially with respect to your assignment, to know that we're focusing on your credit report, not your credit score. Even though I'm about to talk to you about what makes up your credit score, that's not your assignment. I don't care what your credit score is. What I do care about is that you know what's on your credit report, and so you're going to see that. But first, let's review a few things, a couple of things. 3 laws of personal finance, Dave Ramsey's baby steps. I think I already answered questions about homework. If you have any more as we go through the day, you can ask those at the end of the class. And then we'll talk about this week's assignment. So, did you have a question? Do y'all know what the 3 laws of personal finance are? Can anybody repeat them to me? Anybody on the Zoom call? If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I'm going to take a second. I'm going to pause, and I'm going to let you answer them. I know it's 2 in the morning where you are, so we'll pretend that you're not leaving your comment after we talk about it. None of you know what the 3 laws are? Did you watch the video? None of you watched the video. You did? You want to take a stab at it? Try and guess?
Get out of debt. Or stay out of debt.
That was one of the baby steps. Through.
Was saving and spending was the first one.
Yep.
The second one was investments that were like tax-free or something.
Tax advantaged.
Advantage investment. And the third one was the purpose.
Yeah, commitment, law of purpose and commitment. Cool, okay. And then the 7 baby steps, I heard some comments that you guys were, a lot of you appreciated the 7 baby steps. They were helpful. So hopefully that's true. Was that true for any of you? So the 7 baby steps used to be like a core part of the course back when we used Dave Ramsey's material. And so I kept them because they're pretty handy. It's like a mini course inside of the course. If you can learn and know the 7 baby steps, so we'll talk about those for a minute this week. So these are the 3 laws of personal finance. The law of spending and saving, which is spend less than you earn. That's the basic idea, so that you can save more for what matters most. So that's the law of spending and saving. And the law of tax-advantaged investing is something you're going to learn throughout the semester. Investment strategies. I'm going to teach you 4 investment strategies that are designed to maximize return and minimize risk. And I'm going to teach you those strategies while I'm teaching you about tax-advantaged investing. Excuse me. So that's been the most popular part of the course, investing. You're going to learn some really cool strategies for investing that I'm going to make very, very simple for you. But for them to really work for you over the long term, you have to understand the idea of tax-advantaged investing. So I'm going to teach you that. I was born on April 15th. Do you know what that is? April 15th? Tax Day, yes. I was born on April 15th, which is tax day, and my first child, my son, was born on December 31st. Do you know what that means? Any accounting majors here?
End of the year.
What was that?
The end of the year for the financial cycle.
You get a deduction. I got a tax, in fact, it was a tax credit at the time. Back in 1982, it was a $1,250 credit, which is like money in your pocket. And the point is, I got the benefit of that tax break, even though my son was born the last day of the year. It's pretty cool. So I'm a tax guru, born on April 15th, and I plan my children out to the day. Anyway. Yeah, the 3rd law of personal finance is the law of purpose and commitment. If you are clear about what you want to do with your life, if you come to me to help you build a financial plan, I have everything I need if I know what you really want to do with your life. And if you're willing to do the things that make sense, then you'll have a great plan. Those are the 3 laws of personal finance, and they're part of everything we do in this course. So we'll talk a little bit more about them as we go along. Let's talk a little bit about these 7 baby steps. So they're going to get listed on the screen here in front of you, and there's just a couple of them that I want to kind of highlight. So how many of you know what they are without looking at the screen? Did any of you memorize the 7? Like maybe one person here has a photographic memory and you just look at it and you can remember it forever. No? Is it
I mean, I remember most of it, but not like word for word.
cool? So were they helpful for you, Jess? That's Jess.
Yeah, I found them helpful. It's a different order than what I would have like done myself if I like didn't know what order he wanted them in.
Yeah.
But this order makes sense.
Yeah, so there's, Dave Ramsey's been teaching these 7 baby steps for a while, and he's helped a ton of people. I don't know if I told you guys the story about, I worked with Dave Ramsey and his team for almost a decade. I taught his material in churches, and then I started teaching this class, and we used his curriculum in this class. So I've got to go to his office in his complex. He's got like 6 buildings in Tennessee, outside of Nashville. So I've gotten to go there a few times and visit with his team, meet his daughter, Rachel Cruz. But one of the things that really impressed me about Dave Ramsey's outfit is when you go there, if you ever get a chance to go there, on the walls you enter, like where he does the radio show in a glass room that you can watch him do the radio show. And people come there to do their shout. You know anything about that shout, the debt-free shout? Like Dave Ramsey helps people get debt-free. Like that's his whole deal. So anyway, when you go there, you'll see that people write their declaration. I became debt-free on this date. I had this much debt, and now I'm debt-free or whatever. They just put in their own words. And Dave one day told somebody, they were so excited, so grateful. They were there to say, hey, I'm declaring I'm debt-free. So Dave said, let's go. I want you to write that on the wall. So he gives them a pen, and they write it on his wall. Kind of cool, right? Well, he made a tradition out of it. So every square inch of that wall is covered with somebody's little declaration. And then that wall is covered, literally covered, and that wall, and that wall. And so he has like 6 buildings, I told you, and each building has like 3 floors. So I got to tour the buildings, and every building, every floor, every wall has these declarations. I mean, that is the essence of what Dave Ramsey does and what his team is about. And so for that reason, these baby steps have been something that to me are very, very valuable, very helpful, and I wanted to share them with you and make them part of kind of this course. So I want to talk about them just for a minute, just to kind of highlight some things that I think you might want to know about these baby steps. So number 1 is the emergency fund. So first, what is an emergency? What qualifies as an emergency for you, Jess?
Car breaking down.
Good. Car breaking down. Yes.
Something related to health issues?
So health issues. Why would a health issue, what would be a financial emergency about a health issue? You're right. I just want to make sure we're clear. Okay. An accident or surgery, but what would the cost be? Where would the emergency fund come into play?
Emergency funds pay the hospital?
Yeah, pay the hospital. Maybe you have health insurance, but you have a big deductible. You need the money in your emergency fund to pay the deductible, right? So that's exactly right. What else would be a financial impact of a health emergency or an accident or something that you had to go to the hospital for?
Potential loss of income.
Jess, potential loss of income. Is that what you were going to say, Art?
No. I was gonna say that your dog, breaking its arm.
So yeah, Artie? Artie says your dog breaks his arm. That's an emergency.
I mean, fair.
You said fair? Jess?
I mean, you don't exactly like account for your pet breaking their leg, and honestly, not most people don't have like dog health insurance. It exists, but most people don't have it.
So you're saying Artie's right. That's a fair emergency. That qualifies for an emergency.
I mean, I qualify that.
Say it again. Artie's talking while you're talking, and I can hear you very clearly because the speakers are right here. What'd you say, Artie?
I just said, no, I don't think you should leave your dog alone.
Yes. So I gotta tell you guys a story.
Dogs are not kids, so if my puppy's hurt, I'm taking them to the
Your
vet.
puppy is your child, right? I wish if I was prepared, I would show you guys. I'll show you a picture of my dog Lucy, who I love dearly. If something happened to Lucy, I would do whatever it takes. I would give up my own right arm for Lucy. I love Lucy. You will too when you see a picture. But I'm going to tell you a story about Hershey. Hershey is a Yorkie poodle. Lucy's a Yorkshire Terrier. Hershey was a mixed breed York poodle mix, right? Hershey was the ugliest dog in the history of the United States. He was the most ugly dog. And not only that, but Hershey hated me. And the feeling was reciprocated. I hated Hershey. But my daughter, Carissa, who I loved with all my heart, I still do, Hershey was her dog. And my wife reminds me all the time, the day that we bought Hershey, it was like the day before Christmas, and we decided we wanted to get a dog for Carissa. It was my job to help her find the right dog. And so we bought the first dog we found because guess what I wanted to do? I wanted to check it off my list. So my wife reminded me for 16 years while Hershey survived that it was my stupidity, my rashness, my decision to just hurry up and check it off the list instead of doing a little research, right? Yep, and she was right. But here's the story. What does somebody want to share something? I hear some funny noises. Nope. I'm gonna have to mute
Sorry,
somebody.
that's probably me. Sorry.
No problem. Well, I'm gonna mute you, Jess, and you can unmute yourself if you want to. Oh, you're already muted. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is a story. I got to tell this story because you brought it up. Hershey, remember, Hershey was a dog that I didn't have a lot of affection for because Hershey would bite me anytime I'd come into the room. So in Hershey's defense, the reason he wanted to attack me is because I would always come into my daughter's room and I'd tickle her and she'd freak out and laugh, and it was a lot of fun. But Hershey would bark and bark because he thought I was attacking her when I was just messing around playing with her. And she was having fun, but he didn't know it. So Hershey was afraid of me, apparently, according to my wife. That's her story. That's her narrative. So anyway, one day my daughter has a friend come over. Kayla comes over, and Kayla and my daughter Carissa are in the bathroom doing what little girls do. Well, they were like early junior high, so maybe they were doing some makeup. I'm not really sure. I'd try not to pay attention, but they were doing whatever they do in front of the mirror. And so what happened was 2 weeks earlier, Hershey would gather himself right under your feet. He would just lay there. And he had these long, skinny, ugly, ridiculous-looking legs. Long, ridiculous-looking legs. And so my daughter, Carissa, one day, she went to turn to go somewhere, and she stepped on Hershey and broke one of his long, skinny, ridiculous, ugly legs. Okay? And then we took Hershey, we got a pink cast on Hershey's leg. Far be it from me. I was like, okay, it costs like $200 to take Hershey to the vet and get him a cast. But then he got his cast off. And here comes Kayla and Carissa. And Kayla decides to pick Hershey up, who has no cast now, and she puts him on the counter next to the sink, right? The vanity. You know what I'm talking about? In the bathroom. While she's doing whatever she's doing in the mirror. And then she goes to get ready for school, and she forgets all about Hershey. And what do you think Hershey does? He jumps down, And what do you think happens next? He breaks his tender, long, skinny, really ugly leg again, so we take him back to the vet. This time, the vet says, I've got some bad news for you. What do you think the bad news was? Surgery, bolts, hardware, expensive. It was going to be like $1,500. Now, where I grew up, 3826 Maybell, Lansing, Michigan. I grew up on a very busy street, and next door there was a dog named Skeeter. He was also a very ugly dog. But Skeeter would chase cars, and one day he got too close to a car. The car ran over his leg, broke his leg, and they didn't do anything to fix that dog. And he dragged his leg around for the whole summer till you could literally see the bone worn down. Finally, they took him to the vet. The vet cut off his leg, amputated it, shaved half of his body, not his whole body, just around the front. And this was an ugly dog. Skeeter was an ugly dog. Within 2 minutes from the time he got home, he was chasing cars again. And so I tell the vet, when Hershey was in the vet and it was going to be $1,500, I told her the story about Skeeter and how well he did and how fine he was. And I'm like, what? Artie is saying, Artie, if I could take a picture of your face, that's exactly what my daughter and my wife said. And you should have heard the vet, because the vet thought I was evil. I'm like, but Skeeter was fine. So, yeah. Today, though, if Lucy had the same experience, I would spend whatever it takes. So that's.
Skeeter was not fine. Skeeter made do. He didn't have a choice.
He did. You're right. Skeeter did not have somebody loving him like a child. So yeah, there you go.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you said Hershey was a Yorkshire and poodle?
Yep. Yorkie Poo. They call him Yorkie.
How did it turn ugly? That sounds like a cute dog.
Yeah, they probably are cute, but he was evil on the inside. And when you're evil on the inside, you're ugly.
So did you cut off his arm?
No, we spent $1,500. And eventually in the course, we're going to talk about insurance, because that's a very important part of personal finance. And I'll teach you how your homeowner's policy can provide coverage, and did provide coverage for Hershey. It wasn't my homeowner's policy. Whose homeowner's policy do you think I went and made a claim under? Not my wife, because that would be my policy. Yes. So hopefully that raises your anticipation level, so you will come back when we talk about insurance. Because yes, I was smart and I knew how to get insurance to pay for that $1,500. Jess, you have a comment? You know the answer? No. Okay.
I actually studied insurance for a while, so I was about to ask details, but I'm not going to spoil it for everybody else, so never mind.
Cool. Well, you'll be able to figure it out if you think about the homeowner's coverages and you think about a coverage called medical payments coverage, which is a wonderful coverage. And that's how I did it. But I'll tell you more about that later. Okay, back to the lesson. Emergency fund. So you kind of get an idea. Now, let me ask you this about emergencies. If your friends came over unexpected and they're visiting and they're all hungry, and so you need to order in some beer and pizza, which one of those would be the emergency? The pizza. Because you got to eat, right? So does that qualify as an emergency? Pizza?
No.
But in the
No.
past, be honest, has it qualified as an emergency for you? Like not in
No.
the budget, but you went ahead and splurged for the pizza. So that's
indulging, not having an emergency.
yeah, that's right. So that's kind of the major point here with the emergency fund, is you have to figure out like what's a real emergency and where are you going to use your emergency fund to support emergencies instead of supporting all these things that come up that really are not emergencies. So this is this week's collaboration assignment. I want you, as we talk a little bit about the emergency fund, and I'm going to move quickly through everything else, but the emergency fund is one of those things that this semester I would really like for you to think about your commitment to yourself to take some action in your financial plan to do something that's going to make a difference in your life. And this is one small step that you can do that will make a big difference in your life, is to have an emergency fund. So what is an emergency fund? We've already talked about what its purpose is, why you want to have one, because of the things that can come up that you didn't plan for, that create expenses that you really need to pay, whether it's Hershey the ugly dog or your own income that's being missed because you can't work because you got in a car accident or whatever. So emergencies will come. So we know that, but how would you set up an emergency fund? Like, what does that look like? And here's the assignment for this week. I want you to explain in a paragraph or two in a post, here's what you would say to your roommate, to your future spouse, to your best friend, to your cousin, to your future self. Here's what an emergency fund is. Here's how it works. And here's how much you should have in it. And I want you to think about, especially your future self, like this. Like, if that's good advice that you're going to give in this post that you're going to share, either publicly on Facebook and YouTube, or you're going to share within our community and money study group, this post is 2 or 3 paragraphs where you explain what is an emergency fund, how does it work, and how much should you have to your future self or your roommate or your best friend or whoever. I want you to think about, if that's good advice, what are you going to do about it? Like, what is your commitment this semester for your emergency fund? That's the big point. Now, obviously, it's a personal thing and you don't have to share that part. Although, if you're a sharing person, share that part. This is what it is, this is how it works, and here's what I'm going to do. I'd love to see that. But you're welcome to make it just advice to your future self, and you don't have to commit and declare and take that risk of saying, here's what I'm going to do. Because here's the thing. I could ask you, how much do you have in an emergency fund right now? I'm a financial planner. If we were sitting in my office, there's no question about money that I won't ask. I will ask everything. And if you're going to be my client, your job is to share everything with me. It's like having an attorney. I can't help you if you don't share everything with me. If you've got hidden accounts, it doesn't do any good to have a financial advisor who doesn't see the big picture. So I'm not like the person who feels like it's awkward to ask about money, but I get that some of you don't want to tell me how much you have in your emergency fund, but that's a question I want you to ask yourself right now. And if it's less than $1,000, then I'm hoping you will see that it makes sense for you to make a commitment to start to save $1,000 in your emergency fund. If you've got no money in an emergency fund, start with $500. Start somewhere and create an emergency fund of X number of dollars. It's a super important, tiny step that you can take this semester to start moving forward in personal finance, in making and building wealth for yourself. It's a critical piece of the puzzle. And so now that we've established what's it for, how much, the other question is, where would you set that account up? How should that account be set up? What does that account look like? Any ideas?
In my personal emergency fund, I just keep it in cash.
So you keep it in cash under the bed, in the underwear drawer, or in the glove box? Okay, so that's a great answer. Keep it in cash. Anybody else think that's a good answer? Yes.
I would keep it in a high yield saving account or no?
A high yield saving account? I like that a lot better. Anyone else? So we've got cash, we've got a high yield savings account. Anyone else? Okay, so go ahead, Jess.
You could also put it in the stock market. It's kind of like a high yield savings account if you know what stocks to put it in.
Yeah, if you know what stocks to put it in. The problem with putting it in the stock market, and again, I'm a financial advisor, and I would say let's not do that because if you put it in the stock market, for one thing, it may not be liquid. If it is liquid, now you're right, you could put it in something in the stock market that's very safe, but most things you invest in the stock market have volatility. And so you never know when you're going to need it, if it's going to be up or down. So I would have.
What about an index fund?
What about what?
What about an index fund? I heard those are pretty stable.
Index funds are very diversified, but they're not stable. Depending on the index fund, you can invest in an index fund that's all bonds, that's all fixed income. It could be an index fund in a very safe, very liquid, very stable asset class. But just because it's an index fund doesn't mean anything. It could be an index fund of Chinese cryptocurrencies. It could be. Index funds just mean that it's like a pooled investment. It's like a mutual fund without a manager. So we'll talk more about that when we talk about investments. But right now I'm thinking about the type of account. And an index fund is a type of investment. But I'm asking you about the type of account. So we've got cash, actual cash. We've got a bank account with high yield. And we've got a brokerage account, stock market account. You had a comment, Artie?
So, for a goal of an emergency fund, are you trying to potentially increase it by investing it, or are you trying to have it set in excess of that?
That's a great question. So Artie's question is, with an emergency fund, is the goal to have it grow, or is the goal to have it setting there for the purpose of funding an emergency? And what do you say? Which of those is the purpose of an emergency fund? Because you don't want to try to do both with the same fund. Which one would you choose?
I would choose the second. Just
Yeah.
in case something comes up, have it happen.
That's the whole purpose of the emergency fund. So Jess, that's a great question. I mean, your comment was a great comment with respect to what do we do with our money to make it, do well. And so we're going to talk about that. But when we talk about emergency funds, it's not about growing that money. It's about having liquid, safe, immediate cash for emergencies. But there's still a better way and a not so good way to set up that account. So if we know that it's going to be cash, a bank account is the right answer, either a checking account or savings account. But here's what I want you to think about. If you have cash, that's right there, right? Any emergency could qualify, and it's going to be super easy to grab it. And plus, it's cash, which it could get stolen, it could get burned up, it could get blown away in a hurricane. There's all kinds of ways that your cash is less safe than the money you have in the bank, which is FDIC insured. So I would say cash is not the best way, just based on all of those physical risks to the cash, that you just don't want to take that kind of risk. So now if we have a bank account, what are the options if we put it in the bank? Checking, savings, any other kind of quote, CD, but if you have a CD, what happens if you decide, I'm going to get this 6-month CD, but then 2 months later you want to take the money out? You pay a penalty. So you don't want to do a CD in emergency fund unless maybe you're doing half of it in a CD and the other half in cash, depending on how much you have in your emergency fund. But to start out, I'd say we've got checking account so far, savings account. Those are both good answers. Any other account type you can think of? I always think of credit union because A, it's not attached to my debit card. It's a separate account. It's in a different institution. I have to call them or email them or something, maybe go online if I want to access that emergency fund, right? And that is key, to have that emergency fund set up in a way that's a little bit difficult for you to access so that you only access it during emergencies. Does that make sense? You want to be able to access it and quickly, but you don't want it to be connected to your debit card, because what will you do if it's connected to your debit card? What was that? Yeah, you'll grab from it. Your definition of an emergency will change. So by setting up the account in a way that's a little bit more difficult to get to, at least separate, then you have in your mind, this is an emergency fund. And then when your dog breaks its leg or you get in an accident, you know where to go. And you can transfer the money to your checking account, but it's not living in your checking account. Does that make sense? So that's that. And then eventually, you're going to want to save more than $1,000. But I'm hoping this semester you make a commitment to develop an emergency fund. And if you don't have anything, $500 might be a good goal. If you have a couple $100, $1,000 is a good goal. You should have $1,000 sitting in an account as an emergency fund. If you want to be responsible with your money, you need an emergency fund. And I'm hoping you make that commitment to yourself this semester. The rest of these baby steps we'll talk about more as we move forward into the semester, but I don't want to run out of time. We're already 45 minutes in. Any questions about any of these? Let me ask you one question. On number 4, invest 15% in retirement. How does that strike you? Does that sound like a big, heavy, difficult thing, or?
So right now in this stage of my life, it would be difficult because I've only invested like 6% into 401k. But I mean, further on, like we have a better job that pays better. Then I feel like 15% is reasonable and doable.
So the answer is right now that would be difficult. I'm saving 6%, but as I make more money, it will be more achievable, more realistic to save 15%. That was the comment. Any other comments? 15% for retirement. Does that seem like a really difficult, challenging, high bar for you? Yes.
I think it might be a little bit easier just now because later on in life I'll expect to have more expenses.
Yeah.
Like a mortgage. I don't know. I think it will be more difficult in the future than right now that I don't have as many expenses.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. So we have two responses. One is, it seems really hard right now because I'm not making that much money. The other response is, it seems like it'd be easier now that I'm not making that much money because when I start making more money, I'm going to have more expenses, and then 15% is a bigger number. And so that's what I heard from the earlier class was that response, that this is really going to be difficult once I'm making good money to save 15%. So I'm just trying to get a gauge for how all of you feel about the idea of saving 15% for retirement.
I think it would be easier when you make more because if you are planning on having kids, you'll most likely have a partner. So then those costs are split. So then it should be like, okay, you do have this money you put into your retirement.
So the third option is the family plan. You're going to have a partner, you're going to have some help, and you're going to split the cost.
Essentially.
So it should be easier.
But also, well, yeah, that's good.
So, I mean, it doesn't matter how you answer. Typically what happens is I hear you say saving 15% for retirement seems pretty hard. I don't know how I would do that. And so that's a good thing. I want you to feel the weight of that as I say this should be something you aim towards. Because what I'm going to teach you in the weeks ahead is how to do that. And my promise to you is that it's going to become way easier once you understand how to do it and you see the ways that we do achieve that goal of saving 15% for retirement. Once I show you how to do that, you're going to go, oh, I can do that. That's not hard. This is a key to building wealth, saving 15% for retirement. And the more money you make, the more important it is because it's more money. And you're going to learn, especially as we talk about tax-advantaged investing, as you make more money, you're going to save by using tax-advantaged investing, which is going to give you tax deduction, which is going to save you money from taxes so that you have more money to invest so that the 15% becomes super easy to achieve. So I just wanted to highlight that. We'll talk about that more as we go forward.
I just had a question. So would you think that potentially investing 50% of your income?
So has anybody heard of FIRE? I can't remember what it stands for. Financial Independence, Retire Early, I think is what it stands for. And that's their goal, save 50 to 75% of all your income. Is it realistic? I mean, anything you decide you want to do and you're willing to sacrifice for is realistic. You can live on, I mean, depending on your lifestyle, you could live on 25, I could live on 25% of my income, and I could save 75% if I decided to. But I don't need to. I'm only going to live so long. But you could, and if you wanted to get to that place sooner in your life where you get to choose not to work, that's the game. You got to save more. Spend less than you earn, a lot less than you earn, and save more, a lot more, for what matters most. The key is to identify what matters most. What is it worth for you to do it? And then once you have a clear purpose and you're ready to commit, that third law of personal finance is a game changer. So let's move on, see if we can cover some of this credit and debt. By the way, I'm going to, let me ask you guys this. What time you want to be out of here today? You guys can speak up too on Zoom if you care to. Do you guys want to stay till the last minute, or do you want to get out a little early? What time? 12:45. Okay, we'll definitely be out by 12:45. So I just want you to know that if you, it's impossible for me to cover everything in both classes, but I think I did a pretty good job in the first class of covering everything, and I'm going to post that video in the playlist. So, I'm going to try to cover everything right now that I covered in the first class, but what I want you to know, those of you who are watching online or watching currently in Zoom, and those of you who are here, there's a white paper that I put into a money study group. It's a FICO and how all of this works. And it's pretty up to date, and it's pretty comprehensive, and it's pretty helpful. You don't need to know all this stuff. This is probably my least favorite lecture, my least favorite week to talk about credit and debt. It doesn't inspire me, but it is important. And there are some things that are important for you to know. But I'm not going to cover all of them in this lecture. So there's more information out there. If you're interested or you need to know, you have access to the resources to go do that. And there's a quiz too, and that white paper is where most of the questions from the quiz came from. So I would encourage you to download that PDF. It's a white paper, and you can, search it. You can find all of the answers in that white paper, and you can have that to save so that you have all the information you want to know about credit, credit scores, credit reports, FICO scores, and how they work. So let's see. We're going to talk about the credit report, credit score, credit history, credit inquiries, and your credit list. That's part of your homework assignment. So your homework assignment this week is to get a credit report. There's three different credit reporting agencies. We'll get to that slide in a minute, but we already talked about the I Love Credit idea. This whole system is not designed for you. It's designed for the credit industry. So your credit score is not about you. It's not there to benefit you. It's to benefit the creditors so that they know what kind of risk you are so that they can take advantage of you to the best of their ability. And that's what they do with credit. Is credit a privilege or a product? What would you say if you had to choose one?
Product.
Yeah, it's a product. And there's never, in the history of human beings, there's never been a product that has more brains and people and resources behind it to sell it, to push it on you, than credit, the product. Every way you can possibly imagine, you will be sold credit. It's a product. If you look at credit as a privilege, something that you're entitled to, you're going to make the same mistake most people make. But if you look at it as a product that people are trying to sell you, you will become a little bit more skeptical. Eventually you'll become angry, and that will make you want to learn more and be protected against all of the artillery that's pointed at you to get you to take advantage of this product that they want you to think of as a privilege. It's a product. It's an expensive product. It costs you money. 3 agencies where you can get free credit reports every year. You're going to get one this week. It's your assignment. If you have a Social Security number, you'll be able to get a credit report. If you don't have a Social Security number, you won't be able to get a credit report, and you will do the alternate assignment, which I'm not even going to talk about. But for those few students who cannot get a credit report, you're going to do the alternate assignment. But most of you can get a credit report, and that's your homework assignment, is to get a credit report. You go to annualcreditreport.com. You can get 1 free credit report every year, every 12 months, from each of these 3 credit reporting agencies. So you could literally get 3 credit reports. You could get a new credit report every 4 months. Every 4 months you could get a fresh, clean credit report. And so what we want to talk about for the next few minutes is why would you do that? So how many of you ever have gotten a credit report for yourself? No hands are up. Anyone on Zoom? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
So right.
Yes, sir. I have a report from Credit Karma, and I have my 2-3 credit cards listed over there, my card lease and everything.
So did you hear what? That's Rayo? Rayo?
Yes, sir. Rao. Yes, sir.
Rao. Did you guys hear what Rao said? Did you guys hear what he said? He said he's got Credit Karma, and he's got all his credit cards, and he's got his. I didn't catch the last part. But what does that?
My card lease, which is on my name. So my card lease account, which shows how many payments are left on my account.
Cool. So your car lease. So you get your credit score there, right?
Yes, my credit score and the products which are on my name, my 2-3 credit cards and my car. All kind of loans. I don't have any home loan, but it also gives you the option of home loan.
So what I want you to do, Rao, and this is what I want everyone to do, is first of all recognize the distinction between Credit Karma and credit scores versus the full credit report that you're going to get from these agencies. So you may find that everything you see right now in Credit Karma is, that you're seeing everything that's on your credit report. You may see that, I don't know. But I would bet money that when you do your credit report, you're going to find a lot of information that you had no idea about because it's just not being displayed in your Credit Karma account. I may be wrong, but that's your assignment this week, is to do that credit report and then compare that with whatever other information you have. Because what most people do, because what Credit Karma promotes is what? What is it they promote to you? What is the number one thing they want you to have?
Credit score.
Your credit score. And that's because your credit score, they want you to, that's what they sell, or that's what they're promoting is your credit score, because most people want to know what's their credit score. But there's more to it than your credit score. It's your credit report. So I want you guys to get a credit report from one of these 3 agencies. You can pick whichever one you want, and you're going to download the PDF. I don't care to see it. It's easier typically for you to show it to me. Make it part of your Blackboard assignment. If you're not comfortable with that, no problem. Just tell me what's on it. Not like all the details. Tell me what you found, any surprises. It's all in your assignment on Blackboard. But it's usually easier just to show me the PDF, and it's just a bunch of data. It's a ton of data. And I won't be looking at it except to see that it has your name on it and that you got it. So you're gonna all get a credit report from one of those 3 agencies. And what you're looking for are surprises. You're looking to see if the information makes sense. Do you recognize all those entries on your credit report? There's a couple of reasons why it's really important for you to get your credit report. It's the number one, or it's one of the number one ways that you can protect yourself from fraud, is just doing a credit report, paying attention to it. A couple other things I wanted to point out is, so you guys, do you know your big targets for fraud? There are 2 classes of people that are the biggest target of fraud? Do you know who they are?
Seniors and young people.
Yeah, seniors and people that are just old enough to start getting credit offers like yourself. So you're a huge target. Say that. Go ahead. Jess? I missed that.
I was trying to make a joke. Seniors and seniors, you know, high school
yeah,
seniors
seniors
and
and seniors. Yep, seniors and seniors. Good joke. I got it. Okay, so a couple of things I just want to point out in terms of prevention. Just be aware that there's tons of people trying to rip you off, for one thing, and be skeptical. That's a good thing. Hackers, you know what a phishing email is, right? You guys have to pay attention to those. The number one way you get hacked is somebody sends you something, you click on it, and it downloads something on your computer. And another thing is software. And when I say software, I'm talking about, like, I've got an iPad here, I've got a MacBook, and I've got an iPhone, and I've got a watch. That's 3 different pieces of hardware, but each one of them has an operating system, right? And we get updates. If you're an Apple user, you get updates all the time. A notification that there's an update available. Well, I don't know about you, but my mom pays no attention to them. So she's got an iPhone 12. And every time I see my mom, I look at her phone, and she's like 3 versions behind. Do you know how susceptible her phone is to getting hacked? Because every time they come out with an update, the first thing they update is the security stuff. And so you always want to do the updates, whether it's a laptop or a phone or an iPad. And that's a huge thing you can do. The other thing is passwords. Change your passwords. Use smart passwords. I think you know this, but I got to say it because it's amazing to me how many people don't realize that their password is easily hacked. So there's a ton of things you can, well, there's really not a ton of things you need to do. There's a few small things that you can do that can really protect you, and that's why I wanted to mention that. Identity theft, again, the biggest targets is seniors and seniors. Annualcreditreport.com, that's where you're going to want to go to grab your free credit report for this week's assignment. So you'll be doing that. Now, the rest of these slides really just unpack what your credit score is based on. I'm going to just ask to get a gauge of your interest level, because I've already told you my interest level in this content is 0. But how many of you want to know what's in your credit score? I see a lot of hands. Okay, let's go. So your credit score is based on starting with how many accounts do you have. If you have a bunch of credit accounts, your credit score, do you think it's going to make it higher or lower? You think it's going to make it higher? If you have, let's say you have 3 credit accounts versus 0, higher or lower credit score? Higher. If you have 3 credit accounts versus none, you've got some data. They're going to give you a score. As long as you're paying your bills, your credit score is going to be higher. Now, what if you have 30 accounts versus 3 accounts?
It'll be lower if it's too much.
Yeah. So just know the number of accounts matters, but there's, like, I don't know the secret sauce where the break-even point is, but somewhere there's a break-even. There's a, okay, now it's too many accounts. But having no credit, for the I Love Credit people, the whole system that's armed against you, they want you to have credit. So yeah, you get a better score by having credit, but then there's some place where you go ape, bananas, whatever, you know, you go a little overboard, and then it starts to hurt you. Another thing that affects your score is new accounts applied for recently. Again, if you applied for a couple new accounts recently, is that going to improve your score or lower your score? Think it's going to lower it? I would think so too. Honestly, I don't know, but it does affect your score. And I would think that maybe if you have 1 account and you recently applied for another one, maybe that improves it. But if you have 20 accounts and you just applied for 17 more, probably not.
From my understanding, you can like apply for a new account every 3 months. Is what it's best.
Really? So is that best for you, or is that best for the I Love Credit people?
Well, for your credit score, like.
Right. So let's say that that's true, that she said if you apply for a new credit account every 3 months, that's what's best to juice your credit score, to make it better. So fair enough. Let's say that's true. If that's true, who do you think that works for in reality?
Companies.
Well, not exactly like every 3 months you're going to go to the bank and have a new account, but that's like if you just apply, just at least wait 3 months to get a new.
Got it. So you don't want to do one every month. Okay. So the point is, there's a timeline you want to wait. You don't want to do it too frequently, or it's going to hurt your credit score. So that makes more sense to me. Maybe I'm too skeptical for the debt and credit industry. Okay. So yeah, let's see. Let's move right along. Types of credit also affect your credit score, and it counts for 10% of your credit score. And all this is in the white paper. So if you want to know exactly what percentage each of these components make up, it's a good source of information. The types of credit you have, and so we're talking about, mortgage loans, car loans, credit card loans. These are all different types of credit, and these are what you're graded on. So I don't know exactly. Again, they don't make it really clear what percentage of the 10% a credit card would be versus a mortgage, but I would assume that if you have an underwritten loan like a mortgage, that's going to be better for your credit score than if you have a credit card with 27% interest rate and high fees. But I don't know the truth. I mean, I just know that your type of credit makes a difference. Your credit history makes a difference too. And really, they're looking for length of credit. The longer you have credit, the better. So I have a picture there of a Ford F-150. Does anybody know what a Ford F-150 is? It's a truck. Do you know that the Ford F-150 is the most popular vehicle ever manufactured in the entire world, ever? More F-150s are sold in the world than any other vehicle, including Mustang, Corvette, you name it. Nothing is more popular than a Ford F-150. How much does one cost, you might ask? Or maybe it's me asking. How much does a Ford F-150 cost? How much?
About like 40,000.
40 grand. I'd pay for it. I'll buy 2 of them.
I thought the base is like 20K.
20K for the okay, so I'm thinking about the what's the one that's got King in the name? King Ranch with leather seats. It's a fine machine. How much do you think that one costs? How much? 100? I think it's more like 80. I'm not really positive, but it's more than 40. Anyways, I'm showing you a picture of a Ford emblem because when I was your age, if you got a loan to purchase a car, it was like a 2 or 3 year loan, 4 at the most for an upper end car. What is it today? If you go buy that Ford F-150 King Ranch with leather seats for 80 grand, what's the duration of that loan?
You get like 5, 8.
5, 10? You can get a car loan for 10 years. In fact, I just bought a new RV, not a new RV, I bought a used RV and I paid cash for it. But when I was at the RV show, the financing for the RVs now, 10 years. Can you imagine? For a vehicle you drive around, the depreciation on that, like when you buy a new car or an RV or anything with wheels, as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's worth like 30% less than you paid for it. It's crazy. Anyway, for the people that love credit, the credit industry, the longer you have a loan, the better. It gives them more data, gives them more information on you so they can evaluate whether or not you are a good risk for them to put more of their product on so that then they can make sure you're still a good risk so that they can continue to put more product on you. Does That make sense? It's all about making sure that your capacity for more of their product is intact. That's what they're looking for. So the longer you have a loan, the longer the duration, the better it is for your score. This is like the ultimate loan, in my opinion. Like most of us are going to want a house. It's typically the biggest asset for most people, and it's also typically the biggest liability, the biggest loan you're going to have is your home. So that's a mortgage loan, and that does impact your credit score. In fact, if there's one reason for you to pay attention to your credit score, it's so that when you do get a loan for a home, you qualify for a lower interest rate. Because if you have a really bad credit score, then your interest rate's going to be higher. So that's why we talk about credit in this course. That's why we do this week, because it does matter. If you don't pay attention to your credit score, if you don't understand how the things you do impact your credit score, then you're going to end up paying more for a loan, and that's on a home loan, that can be significant. So in your credit score, you got your payment history, the total amount you owe, and the length of your credit history and the types of credit. So that is pretty much your credit score. FICO scores are the number one. When I say credit score, I'm thinking FICO. But just so you know, there are a lot of different credit scores. FICO is the most common. In fact, 90% of U.S. lending decisions are based on the FICO score. But there are I don't know about lots, but there are other companies out there that do credit scoring. I don't know if you knew that. But when we talk about it, we're typically talking about FICO. And they only consider hard inquiries and only inquiries from the last year. So do you guys know what a hard inquiry is? Daniel,
Yes, sir.
answer that question.
The FICO score?
No, that wasn't the question. I can see you're busy. What's your name, young lady?
Erin.
Erin?
Erin's.
Erin's. Aris?
Yeah, so like Eric with S.
Nice. My daughter's name is Carissa. So you're like Aris without the C and without the kind of. Aris?
Yeah.
Aris. So you guys are having a lot of fun back there, Daniel, is what I'm saying. And I could move you, right? Make you come up front, Daniel.
Right.
Because you're the one that wanted to be in class.
Yeah, no, we're just discussing
For me, not for Aris. What were you discussing?
that last assignment.
The last assignment. Okay, cool. You've been put on notice, my friend. By the way, I have one ultimate authority when it's in the classroom, and I use it once a semester just because I want to make sure I still have this authority. Do you know what it is? To ask a student to leave. Can you imagine being the student and I say, hey, obviously you've got more important things to do, so go do them. Would that be a bummer? It's kind of fun. It's not really fun, but I will do it. You're warned. So if you're on your phone, on Facebook or whatever, and you're not paying attention, it's kind of a thing I do. Okay, Daniel? Got it. Cool. Okay, so there are two kinds of inquiries. Hard inquiry and soft. Basically what a hard inquiry is when you apply for credit with a lender or a third party, and you're applying for credit, asking them to consider you for credit, that's a hard inquiry. And that affects your score. The soft inquiry, that's something else. Like when you go do your credit report or you want to see your credit score, that's a soft inquiry. And that does not affect your credit score. So hard inquiry means you're actually looking for a loan and you initiated it. Soft inquiry is a lot of other things that don't affect your score. So for example, if you get an offer for a credit card in the mail, has anybody gotten one in the mail? So you get a pre-approved offer. That's a soft inquiry. It's not a hard inquiry because you didn't apply for that. Now, if you go down to Chase Bank and you say, I want to apply for a credit card, or you go online and say, I want to apply, that will be a hard inquiry. So just know the difference. I think there's a question on the quiz for that, but it's helpful to know. credit inquiries come in two flavors: hard inquiry, soft inquiry. And you're going to see them on your credit report, so don't be surprised if you got a whole bunch of soft inquiries, but do pay attention to the hard inquiries. Yes, Artie?
Just a quick question. What is the reason that having hard credit inquiries decrease your score? What is it?
I wouldn't say it decreases your score, it impacts your score. It's kind of like the number of credit cards you have will impact, or the number of credit accounts you have will impact your score. But will it be good or bad? Well, I mean, we know if you have no credit, you're going to be better, you're going to have a better credit score if you have at least one credit account, right? But what if you have 101? I think that means, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that their formula, their algorithm is going to say, hey, this guy's got too much credit. And so the same thing is with, you said hard inquiries. Your question was, why do hard inquiries affect your credit score? So if you're out there applying for credit at 100 different places, would that be good or bad for your credit score? Probably bad, but if you had a hard inquiry, you had one credit account in good standing, you always paid your bill, and you went and applied for a mortgage, would that hurt your credit score? Probably not, but honestly, I don't know. I just know it impacts your credit score, and I would think that typically hard inquiries would reduce your credit score because you're trying to increase your credit capacity, and that makes the people that love credit look at you and think, okay, well, maybe we should not give him too much more capacity. I mean, I don't know the answer. You could figure that out, I'm sure, if you did a little research. But again, yeah.
So your credit report is a list of all the things that impact it, but it doesn't say how it impacts it?
Correct. It doesn't say how it impacts it. But if it shows, that's a great question. So his question was, your credit report is a list of all the things that can impact your credit score, but they don't tell you how they impact your credit score. That's right. That's why we're going over these different metrics right now. But what your credit report will tell you, it will identify the things that are on your credit that are bad. Like, it'll show if you missed payments. It'll show things that are going to create a problem in your credit score. And that's important because now with your credit report and with those things listed that you can identify, you can now go take action on them. So maybe you have a list of payments you haven't made to creditors, and you know now they're on your list and they're making your score go down. You can now contact those creditors and try to make that right and try to get them to update your credit report so that that bad thing gets eliminated. Or, and here's an important piece of information, when you look at your credit report, you may find something on your credit report that's not accurate. It's a mistake. Maybe it's someone else's information. This happens a lot. In those cases, that information could be making your credit score go way down. And what's in your rights is to contact that creditor and make them aware that's inaccurate information. And you provide them the correct information or document that that's inaccurate, and they're required to remove it. And when that happens, your credit score jumps up. So that's another major reason for you to get a credit report, because if there are mistakes on your credit report, you want to get those fixed. Does that make sense?
How long do you have to fix those mistakes? If the mistake was like 3 years ago, would you still be able to fix it?
Yeah. Even if they're 3 years ago, you can still go back and tell them if it's inaccurate information or, but I mean, I don't remember how long stuff stays on your credit report. I'm sure it's in that white paper, and I should know, but I don't. And it would depend on what it was. So if you missed a payment, a car payment, it may depend on that lender, how long they keep it on their report and when they clean it off, versus another bank who has a different policy for how they report their delinquencies. So there's a whole lot of kind of what ifs that I don't know the answer to, but essentially that's what we're talking about. Good questions. Any comments? Daniel, do you still like me?
I
do, yeah.
Oh,
No, I was
good.
gonna ask, so does the value of the, like, whatever loan you're getting for credit, like, affect the amount that you're gonna get, that your credit's gonna go down? For example, if you're buying a car, that's like, buying 20 grand, like, you get some.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is, if you get a car loan, and it's say you buy a $70,000 car, and you borrow 70 grand to buy it, does that reduce your credit capacity now? How much you're able to go borrow, right?
No, I meant like, so for example, say you are financing the 70,000, does that affect, will that take off more points than if you're financing like 4,000?
Oh, okay,
Somewhere else?
I see. So yeah, so the question is, does your score go down if you borrow more versus borrowing a little less or half as much or whatever? And I'd say the answer to that is probably it does reduce your score, because it's just like what makes your score go up or down? Number of accounts. If you have no credit, your score's down. If you have a few credit accounts, you get a better score. But if you have way more accounts, it's probably going to make your credit score go down. The same is true with credit capacity. If you're in a margin of goodness versus way stretched out, like if you borrowed based on your income, you have way more credit than you can afford, eventually that's going to cause your score to go down. But there's some imaginary line that you have to cross for that to happen, Daniel. And I don't know what the algorithm is or how it works. But yeah, you're thinking right. If you borrow a lot more, chances are it's going to reduce your credit score, because your credit amount is a big part of your credit score. But I don't know where the line is. I don't even know how they keep track of your income, because like if you go to get a loan at a bank, the first thing they do is they want to see you prove how much income you have before they give you the loan. So I'm not sure how the credit bureaus do it, though, how they calculate whether or not you have too much credit. I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry. Great question. Any other questions? Questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So what I think on this is, on this specific question, that their credit score goes down or not, is that in the short term, maybe the score goes down. But if you're making the payments on time, and in the case of credit cards, if you're using maybe 35 or 40% of your balance, and you have like 3 credit cards, on your name, as you said, one business, personal, and for something else, then it may be good for your credit score if you're using a certain limit every month.
I think you're right. So basically, Ralph says that if you borrow a lot of money, probably your credit score is going to go down. But if you keep making those payments consistently, your credit score is going to increase and get better. And the same is true with number of accounts. He said that as long as you're making those payments consistently and regularly, that's going to improve your credit. So that
no more credit card, like maximum 2-3 credit cards, definitely. More accounts will not be handled like it will be hard.
Yeah. I think at some point just having too many accounts is going to hurt your credit score. Okay, so you guys are going to get your credit score. You're going to do a credit list. You're going to make a list. Let me get through these screens. I know we're out of time, so give me just a minute and I'll get us to the end. Actually, so let me cover your assignment real quick. You're going to do your credit report. You're also going to do a credit list. Did we cover what's going to be on the list? No? Okay, so it's just a credit list. You're going to make a list of your creditors. If you have no creditors, you're going to say, I have no creditors. But if you do have creditors like student loans, car loans, whatever, you're going to make a list of your creditors. The name of the creditor, the amount of credit that you have, the amount you owe, the monthly payment that you're going to be making on that loan, and when does that monthly payment start. So for example, with student loans, you may not be making payments now, and you may not have to make payments for 10 years. That's what I want you to know. I want you to have an up-to-date list of your creditors with the total amount of debt that you have and the total monthly payment that you're going to be needing to pay on those loans, and when they start. And if they're starting now, whoop, that was it. Did you see that? Do you want me to go back? So this is it. Those are the 4 columns. So again, what? Any questions on that? It's pretty straightforward. If you have loans, that's what you're going to want. It's 4 columns. The name, the amount, the monthly payment, and when it's due. Okay? Okay, I'm going to have to, if you guys want to go watch the last few minutes of the Zoom meeting, you can scrub forward to the very end, and you'll see I covered a few of the things that are coming as far as future assignments. Nothing critical, we'll go over all of it, but that's what's coming. If you want to see that, it's in the video. Thank you guys, sorry I went so long. It's been fun.
Thank you,
Dan,
sir.
you bet. Thank you, Rob. You bet. Take care. Okay, I'm going to close. You too. Take care. I'm going to close out the meeting. Hold on. Let me close out this meeting real quick.
Thank you, sir. See you next week.
Thank you, Jess. See you later. Hold on. Let me just.